Hi guys, I'm PUTSY, welcome back to my channel, and for today's video, I'm going to talk about all the books that I've read in March 2022. So in total, I read 9 books, not as much as February, not as successful in terms of the amount of books, even though February has less days, but I feel like it's not too bad because I also read a lot more thicker books. So in pages, I read around 3086 pages from 8 books. The other one are audiobook. Not too bad. 9 books is still a lot compared to 2021. My most successful month in 2021 is around 9 books, but 3 or 4 of them are usually audiobooks. Like, even if I only read 1 book, it's still a pretty successful month. Like, I need to stop comparing that and think that if I read less than 5 books, it's not successful, it's not good, because it's not. It's still pretty good as long as I enjoy the books that I've read, and I totally enjoy almost every single book that I've read in March, and that's the most important thing. But also, all 8 books that I've read, all from Kindle. I don't have any physical book this month yet again because I'm still pretty much obsessed with my Kindle. I haven't been able to put it down. So if you watch my March TBR video, I mentioned a couple of physical books in there. I wasn't able to read any of my physical TBR, so but enough of that. Let's just get into all the books that I've read. So the first 2 is part of a duology. It's by Emma Scott, called Full Tilt and All In. I've been wanting to read this one since I saw Steph Borer mention it a couple of times in her video. It's also her 5-star reads, and I feel like we have quite a similar taste in romance books, so I trust her judgment. And also the cover looks very interesting. Good ratings and great cover is usually what draws me into the book more than the synopsis. I feel like I'm pretty open and willing to read any kind of books, any kind of genre. I don't care. I really like this particular cover, but also the trope in this book sounds interesting, and turns out I like the book. It's a continuous story, but I feel like you can just read the first one without reading the second one because it all wrapped up and end kind of nicely. Well, not nicely. This book is actually pretty sad, but it ends. We get a closure in the first book, so you don't have to read the second one, but you cannot read the second one without reading the first one because you won't understand and get why all the things that happen in the second book make sense. Like, it won't be as impactful. And I also feel like if you are attached with the couple from the first book, you probably don't want to get into the second one. I feel some type of way when I read the second one, but in the end I like both of them. So the first book, it's about Casey and Jonah. It's basically kind of a bit of a grumpy sunshine, but the grumpy one in this case is Casey, the main female character. She's a rock star. She's currently having a pretty rough life, having some trouble with alcohol. She have one night stand with random guys almost every single night, not really remembering anything, even though she's at the top of her career as a rock star, but she's just not in a good place mentally until one day she have this concert in Las Vegas. That specific night, things turned really wild. She was super intoxicated, but she got help from Jonah. Jonah was her limo driver that night, and they instantly made a connection. Jonah is one of the only people who are able to see Casey as who she really is. Casey really liked Jonah because Jonah is one of the only people who isn't trying to take advantage of her even in her bad state. So it's a little bit of an insta-love. They grew close very quickly, but it's not that easy because turns out there are some really bad thing happening in Jonah's life, and Jonah don't want to get into a relationship because he knows it won't end well. We have this potentially tragic thing looming over their head the entire time, but you also feel a lot of hope because you believe in their love so much. And in the end, I think this relationship is truly what both of them really need at that time, and it changes them as a person in a way they won't ever get from anyone else. This story is very bittersweet. I can truly feel their connection even though it's insta-love. I usually am not a huge fan of insta-love, but if it's done well like this, I'm totally okay with it. And Jonah is such an amazing guy, and I love Casey's character as well. They truly bring the best out of each other. Very much an unlikely couple, but they work so well together. Overall, I really had a great time, even though the nature of the story is very, very sad. And I gave this book around 4.75 star. It's not quite 5 stars for me. It's a really good book, but it's not like my absolute favorite book. It's like almost 5 star. The second book, I cannot really tell you what this book is about because it will completely spoil the first book. I have quite a bit of a hate to love relationship with this one because if I compare it to the first one, if I remember all the things that happened in the first book, it made me feel betrayed and sad and angry. I don't want all the things that happened in the second book to happen, but at the same time, the relationship, the love story, their journey in this book is incredible. I can truly feel like they are made for each other in the end. Once I see their relationship, their bond, and how they get to where they are, it totally makes sense. It's a bit of a slow burn, and I also love the setting in these two books. The first one in Las Vegas, the second one, some part of it still happened in Las Vegas, but we also get to see more New Orleans in this book. I can totally envision both cities quite vividly. The first book is more lovely and bittersweet, and like it tugs in your heart in such a, I don't know, more melancholic. The second book I think is more angsty. Both relationship and both love are very, very strong. I can feel their strength. I can feel that they are both right, but they also have quite a different dynamic, so I can appreciate both of them. And for this book, as much as I kind of hate where the story is going to go at first, I ended up giving it a higher score. I gave it 4.85. I like both of these books. It's a very solid, great series overall. Finally, a book from Mariana Zapata. It's the very first book I've read from her, and now I can totally understand what everyone has been saying about her and her writing, about her being the queen of slow burn. I was kind of hesitant to get into her catalog because I'm not a huge fan of slow burn usually. I don't really like an insta-love, but I also don't really like a slow burn. I feel like I'm way more in the in-between kind of person, but if it's done well, I've never said no. There are a lot of books in insta-love and slow burn category that I like. This is how you do a slow burn. And the first book I read from Mariana is All Roads Lead Here. This book is the very first book that got me intrigued into Mariana Zapata's world, honestly, because of the cover. Simple yet intriguing, but also very calming. I just feel like the book will have a very great vibe, and turns out I was very right. Yeah, this book is fantastic. I really like it. I think I gave it 5 stars. It also has some amazing trope in it. It's grumpy sunshine, forced proximity, single parent trope, a bit of an age gap. We have some found family in this as well. You can also call it hate to friends to love, or maybe just hate to love, I don't know. So the main character in this book is Aurora and Tobias Rhodes. The story begins with Aurora, who just got divorced a year ago, and it wrecked her basically. So she's been trying to move on from one city to another until finally she decided to settle down in Pagosa Spring, which is also her childhood hometown. She used to grow up in here until before her mom disappeared when she was hiking, and her mom really loves her hike. She also have this journal filled with all her favorite hikes. So Aurora decided to move back to her hometown, trying to reconnect with her old self but also with her mom. So she's determined to go into all of her mom's favorite hikes. She moved to Pagosa in one of the busiest months. A lot of hotel and rentals are not available until one day she found a place in someone's garage turned into an Airbnb. Turned out the owner of the house, Tobias Rhodes, doesn't know that the place have been rented out. His kid is actually rent out the place without his knowledge. They don't start in a very good note there. He instantly disliked her, but she kept pleading and pleading until he finally agreed to let her stay there. And Tobias Rhodes is just a super grumpy single dad and was really cold towards her. And Aurora have a very, very sunshine kind of positive nature to her. She's currently trying her best to settle in. She's working at a local store, trying to rekindle her relationship with her old friends. And not only that, she also got close to Amos, Tobias Rhodes' son. They have a very unlikely, wholesome friendship, which I really like. And a lot of things happen, I think slowly but surely, that made Rhodes, we don't call him Tobias here in this book, but let me just say, a man in fiction book named Tobias somehow always hit. Tobias King, Tobias Rhodes, kind of a superior man in books. So if you also have any other favorite male character from books named Tobias, let me know. I might check that book out. Even though Tobias isn't really showing his affection to Aurora, but it's clear that he always been very protective of her, and also just Aurora proved Rhodes wrong in so many instances at the beginning that slowly he start to open up to her and see her in different light. We see more of Aurora in the first half of the book. We rarely got to see Rhodes at all. He only appeared a little bit here and there at the start. It might be a little bit of a turn off for some of you because we don't really see their relationship blossoming at the very beginning, but I feel like I kind of like the way it is because I get to see and connect to Aurora's character and her relationship with everyone in town a lot in the beginning, and we see a lot more of Pagosa Spring, all the hikes that she did, the nature that she's in. It makes me want to get out and explore the nature and all of that, even though I didn't, but it made me want to, and it felt so comforting, feels so cozy. It's quite an atmospheric experience reading this book, and I think that's one of the reasons why I like the book so much, because I love the setting and everything, not only the relationship, and I love the way Rhodes and Aurora build their connection. It's not purely physical, and we can truly feel that. It's more on a deeper level. It doesn't feel surface level at all. There are a lot of amazing quotes in this book. I just love seeing Aurora's growth and how she tackles her pain, how she moves on, trying to be happy again, trying to find herself. It's quite inspiring, and Rhodes is also quite a superior man in my opinion, even though we didn't get to see a lot of him, but from what I've seen of him, I can see that he truly treated everyone around him well, even though he's very grumpy. It's difficult for him to get close to people, but the people who got close to him, he treated them with such care and love and affection, and I can truly feel it, even though he rarely say his feeling and his affection out loud. It's not very spicy, so if you are trying to find a great romance book but you don't like smut and spices in your book, then I think you will like this book. Like I said, I give this book 5 stars, and this convinced me to read more books from Mariana Zapata. So from now on, I think I will make it my mission this year to read at least one book from her each month. So the next book is quite a dark romance. It's Still Bleeding by Jennifer Hartmann. It's honestly incredible. I give this book 5 stars. Hate to Love, Forced Proximity, Shared Trauma. It's a book about Cora and Dean who got kidnapped one night by this crazy psychopath serial killer. He has a very weird, crazy but also interesting MO. He kidnapped people, men and women. He's trying to make both of them fall in love, have deep connection first, and then he killed them one by one while the other person watched. So Cora and Dean managed to survive. Dean is Cora's sister fiance. Have been together for more than 10 years, I think 15 years or something like that, since they were in high school. It's been a long time. Cora and Dean knew each other, but they never get along. They hated each other. It all changes when they got kidnapped, and they are bond forever through their trauma, but obviously they cannot be together because Dean is with Cora's sister. Yes, it is dark, but at the very core of it, the relationship in it is heart-wrenching but beautiful and lovely as well. I can truly feel their connection. It's super angsty, it's sad, it's frustrating, and it's also very tragic. As much as I love the main character, I don't really like the side character in this book at all. There are a lot of really weird, unsensitive people around them that I just don't really like. Truly cannot get over this book. I really love it. I read this in one sitting, but just know, even though I read this in one sitting, it's not a very easy book to get through. Crazy hard-hitting things happen in this book, so make sure to check out the trigger warning. Obviously, it has kidnapping, assault, mental health struggles, suicide attempt involved in this book. Not a happy, light-hearted book at all. It's quite heavy and dark. So after I read this book, I found out that Jennifer Hartmann has another book called Lotus that has a character that appeared in Still Bleeding, even though he only appeared for like one sentence, but it already got me interested because of his situation. So this book is about Oliver Lynch. In Still Bleeding, we found out he was found after 22 years missing or something like that. Crazy amount of time. He's been kidnapped and confined in someone's basement with only a mattress, a toilet, art supplies, very old books, and very old movies. When he got out, of course, it's very shocking for him. Everything is obviously different from where he left it. So we get to see him trying to go back into his life, trying to fit in and heal with the help of his stepbrother and his childhood best friend named Sydney Neville. It's obvious that they've been in love with each other since they were a kid. They haven't moved on from each other. Even after all these years, we'll be able to see them trying to form a relationship again, trying to get to know each other while also helping Oliver fit in this new life. I love the fact that he have a lot of people around him who truly want the best for him and help him adapt to this new world. It's very, very lovely to see, and this book is surprisingly funny. It is still quite dark and have some heavy topics like Still Bleeding. More towards the end of the book, it got really, really heavy, so make sure to check out the trigger warning. Unlike Still Bleeding, which is quite depressing, angsty, and sad the entire book, but in this one, it's way more balanced. Like, it has a lot of light-hearted, funny moments, especially as we see Oliver, who only knows how people talk and act 22 years ago, obviously doesn't fit with today's society. So sometimes he said things that are just very weird and unconventional, and it really is funny to see, but he's also very charming because he's just unapologetically himself. Yeah, I like the balance of this book. Don't think it's quite 5 stars for me. I don't know why, but it's very, very close. I give this book around 4.85 stars. So next is an audiobook, but it's actually a reread. If you watch my February wrap-up, you'll know that I just found one of my favorite series of all time, The Ravenhood by Kate Stewart. I actually reread them. I know it's only been a month, but I couldn't get that story out of my head. Every time I think about those books, it still hurts me in such deep level. I couldn't move on, but I promised myself to wait a year at least before I reread the book. It's my own fault. I followed Kate Stewart on Instagram. She always posted reels and stories from people who have read the book. She also posted a lot about the audiobook, and I heard a lot of incredible things about it from people. They said the voice is incredible. It got me curious. Even though it's only been a month, I was trying to convince myself, you know, it's okay because it's an audiobook. It's completely different. So I did. I managed to finish Flock, the first book in the series. Let me just say, it's an experience. It's incredible. If you read the book, you know the book is only from Cecilia's point of view. Well, at least the first 2 books, but we get male and female voice. So there's voices for every single character, for every dialogue. I was afraid a little bit because I thought reading it so soon, I might not enjoy it as much as I first did, but turns out I have nothing to worry about. I actually like the book even more. I don't know how that's possible because after knowing everything, getting into the book again, everything just makes so much more sense. Every single little detail, every single thing that they said, and seeing all the other characters that appear later on the book that caused me pain, seeing them innocently in the first book hurts me like no other. It made the whole entire ride even more enjoyable, but also more painful. But even though the audiobook is incredible, I won't suggest it for your first time round. I feel like if you get into the audiobook for your first time, it might be a lot more confusing than it already is. I don't know, I feel like reading it physically is way better for the first time and then get into the audiobook to get a more fuller experience. But yeah, if you like the Ravenhood series and you haven't listened to the audiobook, please do, because it's honestly incredible. Next is from Penelope Douglas. So now I've read 3 books from her: Birthday Girl, Punk 57, and now Credence. And I still don't know what to think of this book. I love it, but I also hate it at the same time. It has some taboo topic in it, okay? It's about a girl named Tiernan. She's 17 years old. Her parents, very famous celebrity in Hollywood, and then one day they died. They left her with her uncle, who up until this point she never met. Actually, her step uncle, his name is Jake. He doesn't have a good relationship with his stepbrother, Tiernan's dad. So Jake called Tiernan, "Hey, I know we don't know each other, but your parents left you with me at least until you're 18, which is only in a couple of weeks, so it's all up to you. You can live where you are. It's okay with me, but if you want to come and live with me and my 2 sons, it's okay too. You're welcome to come and live with us." Tiernan decided to take Jake's offer, and Jake and his 2 sons, Noah and Caleb, lives up in a mountain. They have very long winter for 6 months or something in a year. They are the only house up in that mountain. They're very secluded, and when winter hits, they are very much trapped in their house. Not long after she visited Jake, it's winter time. While they were secluded with nothing else to do, 3 men and 1 girl. So things turn really crazy. This book is way more taboo and crazier than Birthday Girl. We have age gap, polyamorous between Tiernan and Jake, Noah, Caleb, forced proximity, obviously forbidden love, even though yes, Tiernan doesn't have a blood relation to Jake, Noah, and Caleb, thank God, but it's still a bit uncomfortable. Technically, they're still your family, but at the same time, I also understand why things happen, because they truly start to form a connection in more deeper level than just physical attraction. I think in a lot of ways, they all found each other in a very pivotal moment in their life when they truly needed, and I think that made this relationship feel more acceptable to me. But I also don't know how I feel about the ending. Sometimes I feel like, oh yeah, it makes total sense. I'm okay with it. I feel content. But all the other times when I think about the other possibilities, I feel like, why don't you end up that way? Because those other potential is way more acceptable, made so much more sense, just better than this one you end up with. So I don't know, I feel conflicted with the ending, and even now I still don't know what score this book deserves. Sometimes I feel like, oh no, this book is 1 or 2 stars, but other times I feel like it deserves 5 stars. Because sometimes this book also gives me cozy feeling, like all roads lead here, because it also set in nature, mountain, and it's quite vivid as well. I love the setting so much. Because I feel conflicted, I know for sure this book don't deserve 5 stars, maybe at least 4 or 4.5 stars. And also this book is very, very spicy, like one of the spiciest book I've read so far. And the last 2 books that I've read in March is part of a series. It's a Twisted series by Anna Huang. I've read the first 2 books, Twisted Love and Twisted Games. This series is a companion novel series. I think that's what you call this kind of series. In each book we get to see relationship from different couples, but they all from the same friend group. I'm glad I finally read this series because it's actually really good. I give these 2 books at least 4.5 stars, maybe even 5 stars, I don't know. And I'm currently reading Twisted Hate, the first and second book, Grumpy Sunshine. I hate everyone but you kind of trope as well. In the middle, towards the end of the book, there's always gonna be some twist happen in their relationship that made everything just feel so much more angsty. The tension is incredible. Yeah, let's get into the first book first. It's about Ava Chen and Alex Volkov. Alex is Ava's brother's best friend. So we have Grumpy Sunshine, Forced Proximity, I Hate Everyone But You, brother's best friend. Alex is very cold, not just with Ava but with everyone, but slowly but surely they just clicked and connect. So the second book is about Eva's friend Bridget, a real-life princess basically, soon to be queen, and her personal bodyguard Reese Larson. We have hate to love, grumpy sunshine, forced proximity because obviously they need to be together almost 24/7, age gap, also secret relationship and forbidden love because obviously she's a queen, she cannot be in relationship with a commoner, especially since he is her bodyguard. The tension, the angst in this book. What I can say about this series, it's actually quite a steamy one. Twisted Games, I feel like, is a lot more slow burn than Twisted Love. After thinking about it, feel like I like Twisted Games a tiny bit more than Twisted Love. And even though this series is a companion, so you can read these books as a standalone, I won't suggest that at all because it's very much interconnected. For example, you get to see the start of the second relationship in the first book, so you get to see the progression of the later couple in the previous books, and also in terms of the timeline, all these books kind of overlap, and it's also just kind of fun to go to the next one and see and kind of make a mental note as you read it. Oh, this is happened when they are doing this. You get to see things that happen in the first book happen in the second one, but through different perspectives, and it's so fun to see how everyone is doing even after their story ended, you know. It's probably one of my favorite from March for sure. So that's it. That's all 9 books that I've read in March. I truly had a great time. I love almost every single book I've read in March, and I cannot wait for all the books that I want to read in April. If you want to see what books I'm planning on reading, I already posted my April TBR a couple days ago. I'm going to link that video down below, and hopefully I will be able to touch my physical books again. And you're welcome to share your own March wrap-up. I also want to see your favorite read from March. Let me know in the comment down below. And lastly, I just want to say thank you so much for watching, and I hope I can see you in my next video. Bye guys!